Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be taking a look at this record here. It is the Squeeze album Sweets from a Stranger. So I'll just be doing my usual thing in this review, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So this was the band's 5th studio album, released in May of 1982. I couldn't get an exact date for it, unfortunately. Since the last album, which was East Side Story, Paul Carrack had left the band. He was quite a significant member, although he was only on that one album, because he sang the lead vocals on their biggest American hit at that time, and the song Tempted. He was replaced by a guy called Don Snow, who can't even point him out on here too well because it's quite a bad band photo here, but he was on this album instead of Paul Carrack. Apparently recording the album was quite a unpleasant experience, because by this point Squeeze were let's say worn out and quite exhausted, pretty much after consistently releasing albums each year since 1978 and pretty much touring non-stop as well. So by this point they probably were due a break, whoever the record company A&M probably insisted on them making yet another album, so it's kind of back in the studio, let's just do it again. It was, the whole thing was maybe getting a bit monotonous for them, and it did certainly show in the quality of the album here. This was definitely Squeeze's popularity was declining quite a lot. It peaked at number 20 on the UK charts, and critically wasn't well received. It was kind of panned for its slightly darker, more depressing moods, but also simply because the songwriting quality which had been so good on the previous Squeeze records, that wasn't there all that much on this album. So after a short tour to promote this album, the band actually formally broke up. Squeeze announced that they split up. The greatest hits compilation Singles 45s and Under was issued a few months afterwards. However, they did actually reunite some 3 years later in 1985, which you would think that's just normal length of time between records, but Squeeze actually formally broke up and then maybe realised that maybe wasn't the right decision, and actually reformed to make the album Cozy Town Tutti Frutti. So I want to now show you my vinyl copy of it here. There's nothing really special about this one, just a standard UK original of it. So there's the front cover. As I said, I'm not a massive fan of the cover, and there's the back of it there. Quite weird design, it's sort of the outline of each the members faces sort of thing, each one kind of represented as sort of a faceless shape, sort of thing, which is quite strange. The song titles as well there, and then you just get the inner sleeve, which again has more sort of abstract illustration, and then lyrics on each side here of the inner sleeve. And the record is just on the usual A&M records for Squeeze. So that's Sweets from a Stranger, the vinyl copy gone over. Okay, so I'm now going to look at each of the 12 songs in detail. I'll score each track out of 10, and then those scores will be used to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. So the record begins quite well with a song called Out of Touch, which is when it starts, it's very different from what we know from Squeeze. It's got this sort of throbbing synthesizer on it. It's quite a good song, actually, quite well written, this song, well sung, well played. Just lyrically, about the falling down of a relationship. I do really like this song because it does show them developing their sound quite successfully. So yeah, Out of Touch, a good song there. We're getting 8 out of 10 from me. And the next number is called I Can't Hold On, this one is quite a fun, upbeat song. I would say this one is very repetitive, this track here. Even during the first chorus, you can sort of sense it is a little bit repetitive. but by the end it's just annoying, this track. Like you kind of like you kind of just like really like sort of like wish like it would like end, that sort of thing, because it just keep repeating that line like I can't hold on. But it is quite a sort of creative like arrangement. Like it's quite sort of like Elvis Costello, and the attractions like sort of similar to something like on like the Get Happy album. But like, I would say like as well, like sort of like the ending, like you've got this sort of piano sort of solo thing, like Don Snow like sort of like trying to make an impact like with the band, but not really like succeeding. So yeah, like I can't hold on. We'll get a 6 out of 10. Not really a brilliant track there, but not too bad though. And the next one is a slower ballad called Points of View, which is a more, sort of softer ballad. However, it goes into this sort of almost like reggae style thing, like for like the chorus. I would say Tilbrook's vocal on this track is just pretty boring. Like he sounds very bored and just like completely sort of dead, like singing like the line like talk to you, like which goes through like the chorus. Like he just puts in zero effort like with it, really. Like you can really like tell like this was a band like very much like on like the verge like of like breaking up or like kind of just like something wrong with like the band dynamic. Stranger than these, stranger who walks by my bed, shares in my life. And the next one is a kind of failed experiment called Stranger Than the Stranger on the Shore, which this one is Squeeze's attempt at something a bit more funky, sort of Talking Heads like style track here. However, it's just quite like uninspired though, like sort of the bass playing from John Bentley's just a little bit boring really. Like, and like the lyrics are quite good on this song, like I will give it that, but it's just not a track which is really memorable. Like it's just quite a forgettable, like quite like an average song there. Onto the dance floor, out of the sadness. So the next number is called Onto the Dance Floor, which is another kind of like weaker track here. It is quite a dull song. This I don't think Tilbrook's vocal like is all that good. Like the chorus like is like another like attempt at something like a bit more funky, like a bit more danceable. Like however, it is just dull, this song. Like just like quite boring track. Like not really that well produced like either. Like if I'm being like honest. So yeah, like Onto the Dance Floor, not a song like which I would ever go back to really. We'd give it like a 4 out of 10 like at best. When the hangover strikes and then the closer to side 1 is called When the Hangover Strikes, and like that's another theme like explored lyrically like on this record, like kind of like drinking, like and like sort of like the consequences like of like getting drunk, like which is sort of like the band like were sort of like heavy drinkers like at this point in time, like and it's certainly like that did like take the focus away like from like their music. This one like is a very sort of different sound like for Squeeze, like yet again like it's them trying to do something a lot more softer, a lot more sort of jazzier, like jazzier track, like Tilbrook said that this one was inspired like by Frank Sinatra. And funnily enough, this was issued as the second single from the record. For me, I've got no idea why, because it is probably the least commercial song like on here. Absolute rotten choice for a single, and no wonder like it failed to chart. So yeah, When the Hangover Strikes, another 4 out of 10, another song which I don't really care about too much. Now flipping over to side 2, we get the 3 best songs like on like the record. Like it is starting to look up like for this album finally. It starts off with Black Coffee in Bed, which was the lead single and is clearly the best track here. I will admit it does have a very similar feeling to the song Tempted. Like it's almost like they're trying to like rewrite that track. It's just a very sort of mid-tempo, very soulful song like that, like the regrets and like lyrically like about like the regrets like of breaking up like with like a girlfriend. The track like features 2 guest stars, Paul Young and Elvis Costello, like who do like the backing vocals. Like you don't really pick up like their voices like immediately, like but like once you know it's them, like you can certainly hear them. And as a single, this track didn't do particularly great. Like again, like it was certainly like evidence like of Squeeze's sort of like fading popularity. Like only reached number 51 like in like, the UK, which is a little bit like unfair because it is a very very good song this here. like, although like I would say like over 6 minutes long, it does drag out a bit towards the end. But overall though, a really good track here. Like, we get a 9 out of 10 from me. And the next one is called I've Returned, which is another really solid, really rocking track. It starts off like with this kind of like a cappella like introduction thing. Like, it does take a little while like to get going. Like, but once it does, it is a really solid sort of like almost sort of punky like style track this here. But what makes this song really interesting though, like, is like the rhythmic changes like what it goes through. Just keeps the song very interesting, very unique, and like this was like a live favourite like as well, like from the time. So I've Returned, another really good song, another 9 out of 10 from me. And the next one is a more experimental song, but this one actually, like I would say, really works. It's called Tongue Like a Knife, which is a more sort of slower, brooding number, like with these kind of heavy, like prominent drums, like, and like a very sort of like intricate, like string arrangement. This track is like very well produced, like almost sort of like Phil Spector-esque, like sort of style to it, and like also like the uniqueness, like of like the Squeeze, like sort of harmony vocal style, like of like Difford and Tilbrook really gives like the chorus like this sort of like menacing like feel to it. It is like as a song though maybe a little bit forgettable like melodically, but it does grow on you like this track, like it is a song like which I could do like it is a song like which like I would definitely like go back to like from this album. That was very like enjoyable to listen to this song. And then the last 3 songs kind of let the album down again a bit. The first of them is His House, Her Home, which is a more sort of like upbeat like song. Like, whether like I do sort of dislike Chris Difford's vocals like on this one here. Like, this is his main sort of vocal spotlight like on this record. But like I just think the song plods along. I don't think his vocal like does the song like any favours. It does feature quite an interesting like harpsichord solo, but like I think like sort of like a lot better production, like a lot better like arrangement like of this song like could have helped it, because like underneath it like there is like a half decent set of lyrics, like half decent like melody like as well. So yeah, His House, Her Home would get a 6 out of 10 from me. And then the second to last song is my least favourite on the album. It's called The Very First Dance, which, yeah, this isn't a great tune here. This has a very, very annoyingly repetitive, like, sort of vocal hook which goes through the song. Like, it's trying to be very current, like, very sort of, like, synth pop style, but it's just not pulled off well at all, like, on here. Like, it's just very, very annoying. And, like, again, production-wise, like, this, like, almost sounds like a demo, basically. Like, after like the verses like are done, like it just goes like on and on and on, like almost like they didn't really bother like to finish like writing this track here. So yeah, The Very First Dance, not a great song there. A 3 out of 10 like at best like I can give it. And then we finish with a rather average song called The Elephant Ride, which begins with a more sort of like laid back, like acoustic guitar. Like, we're kind of back to sort of like familiar sort of Squeeze territory here. It's just like a little bit repetitive lyrically. That line, "Today is none of our concern," like, which is just sort of like repeated like throughout, like sort of like the chorus like of it. It just really passes by the song without making much like of a impression. And like certainly being like the closing song, like want to end with something like quite memorable. This song like just doesn't really do that. Like it is just quite forgettable filler really. Okay, so overall this record would score 61%. So yeah, not a great score for it. Like certainly like a kind of like average like record here. By this point, like as I've said, the band were like worn out. Like they kind of really lacked like on here like the youthful energy like of like the first 4 records. Like it kind of also lacks a sort of like the witty lyrics like and like clever melodies. It is just almost like a sort of like lazy like watered down version like of Squeeze. However, despite this, there are a handful of essential cuts, such as Out of Touch, Black Coffee in Bed, I've Returned, and Tongue Like a Knife. However, I would say this is one of these records which would certainly have been better as a 4-track EP, because the rest of the material ranges from average to sort of really bad. So yeah, Squeeze, Sweets from a Stranger, not their finest record here. They certainly made a lot better albums before and also after as well the more recent work certainly is a lot better than this album. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed this review, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.